Welcome back to Full Circle Ancestry's Slovakia and More tour. This is part 6, Tasting Local plus Coming Full Circle. Well, let's revisit our map of the Slovak Republic one more time. Our first 5 parts of the tour covered much of the country, west to east, south to north. Last time we visited Hervarto, Prešov, Vyšný Medzev, and Košice. Let's round out our tour today, first by going from Košice to the vineyard village of Mala Tyrnia, and this winery which gladly opened its doors to us, leading us into their caves deep below the vines of the Tokaj wine region. The old bottles develop a frankly nasty-looking layer as they age in the dank cellar, but we're told such conditions make for good aging. We made our way down an aisle lined with the latest vintage, currently developing in wood barrels. Are we trapped? Must we remain in this musty, medieval labyrinth by candlelight to suffer? Actually no. Our hosts revealed the tasting assortment for the day, each different variety accompanied by a small bite. It looks like I had a good time. The Tokaj wine region is shared with neighboring Hungary, which in fact can claim nearly 90% of the active vineyard area within the designated region. At this bespoke barrel-shaped tower, we ascended the spiraling staircase to see the vines growing across the countryside. Those hills in the distance are in Hungary, whose border is less than 2 miles, just about 3 kilometers from the tower as the magpie flies. So close and yet so far, we did not venture into Hungary, as we needed to head for our next stop, the Kasigarda Museum in the village of Tahynia. On the way, we got a quick glimpse of the Dargovský priesmyk, or Dargovský Pass, where a battle was fought toward the end of World War II. The Soviet Army crossed the pass on January 18, 1945, reaching Košice the next day. And then we came upon the Kasigarda Museum, which bills itself as Museum of Emigration from Slovakia to North America, and is the work of Dr. Martin Javor. A pessimist might see the small village in the very east of Slovakia as the middle of nowhere, but Dr. Javor sees it as the middle of everywhere. His aim is to preserve the activities of those Slovak and Rusin pioneers who set out for North America during the Great Migration period of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The museum takes its name from Castle Garden, a building at the southern tip of Manhattan Island that served as the main immigration center for New York Harbor before the more well-known Ellis Island facility opened its doors in 1892. Inside the museum are artifacts of all kinds, created by the immigrants after arriving in America, forming cultural associations, building churches aimed at transplanted congregations. Dr. Javor has obtained many of these items in the USA and brought them back to the museum to showcase these treasures of history. The collections include publications printed in their new hometowns, documents describing the means of traveling there, and photographic evidence of carrying forward such traditions as the Jasličkári, wandering performers who might visit your house to sing a nativity song at Christmas time. Let me take a moment to recognize that as we rise above the museum and look not too far in the distance, we can see Ukraine less than 5 miles or about 8 kilometers away. We're enjoying ourselves on this great trip, while a nasty situation continues not so far away. Bear in mind that Ukraine is a pretty big country and the fighting is still far off. If we were standing in St. Louis, the fighting would be concentrated east of the Appalachian Mountains, in Virginia and Maryland. Still, extending the Slovakia and More tour with feet on the ground in Ukraine was not on the agenda. In the Slovak American Heritage Garden surrounding the museum building are some memorials to Slovak Americans. Andrej Babjak was born in Jubince, Slovakia, and arrived in the USA at age 15. He parachuted into Normandy on D-Day, June 6, 1944, with the 82nd Airborne, but lost his life early that morning at only 20 years old. Astronaut Eugene Cernan was born in Chicago to a father of Slovak descent and a mother of Czech heritage. He served in the U.S. Navy and ultimately traveled to space 3 times, including walking on the moon with Apollo 17 in 1972. Dr. Yavor has spun this into an additional commemoration he calls Kyanhinyasa, a play on words of the museum's village location, where I imagine the stars are incredible on a clear night. Visit Kasigarda if you have half a chance. From here, we started the last leg of our journey, ultimately back toward our starting point, but doing so by a different route through the historical Spiš County, my primary Slovak ancestral region. Next up is a visit to Spiš Castle, or Spišský hrad, an imposing structure on top of an isolated hill, an obvious choice for a fortress, and there's been one here since at least 1120. Though nothing as sprawling as the current footprint of over 4 hectares or more than 10 acres. While some of the structure is left in a modest state of disrepair and hung with overgrowth, much of the castle has been preserved and restored. We walk through the main gate and quickly come across a model of the castle shown in all its former glory. A walk through the castle offers endless, interesting vantage points. It's a magnificent sight, especially on what has turned into a beautiful final day on the road. We continued a short distance westward, and as I realized we'd be passing by one of my ancestral villages, the group agreed to stop and have a look at Spišský hrad. After paying a short visit to the former noble manor known as Kastíl Spišský hrad, we strolled just around the corner to the Roman Catholic Church of St. Simon and Jude. There was a well-attended confirmation ceremony underway, but after the crowd cleared out, we were able to view the wonderful interior with many furnishings dating from the 16 and 1700s, framed by timbers, some of which date to the 1300s. I was happy to be back to share a bit of my ancestral story with our group, and have another chance to view the baptismal font where my great-grandfather, Johannes Fefra, was baptized in 1863. It was quite a sideshow, but now time to continue on to Levoča, town of 14,000, once an important center of commerce in Spiš County, but declining in importance in the days of the railroad when the main line was run several miles to the south. Here is one of Slovakia's main state archives, in which I spent some time last year looking at historical maps of my ancestral villages. This decorated facade includes an inscription invoking both the Turzo and Chaki family names, prime nobility in centuries gone by. Nearby is the tower of the Basilica of St. James, a statue of Ľudovít Štúr, who codified a standard Slovak language in the 1840s, although plenty of dialect variations continue to exist, and Fontana Dobročinnosti, the Fountain of Charity. Levoča also has a small section of preserved medieval city walls, although nothing approaching the appeal of those in Bardeo. Our group managed to get a tour inside the church, but photography inside was strictly forbidden, so I only got a couple of snaps in the entry hallway. St. James is magnificent and should not be missed, but you'll have to trust me. The main square is called Námestie Majstra Pavla, named for Master Paul, whose carvings and sculptures adorn St. James Basilica and beyond. Nearby the basilica is the Old Town Hall, first built in the 1400s and reconstructed in the 1890s. We capped off our time in Levoča with one last meal before the final drive back to Bratislava, where our journey would end. We found an interesting restaurant and a hotel in the square with some cool art and artistic touches. Let's wrap up our final stop with a roof section of the Old Town Hall, whose entry door is flanked by this warm and friendly executioner statue. And The Cage of Shame, an original work from the 1600s, intended to disgrace criminals and warn the passing pedestrians. Here's one final look at the map of Slovakia, showing all the ground we've covered on this 6-part tour of a wonderful country, one which I hope to be able to visit again soon and often. Thank you so much for watching Full Circle Ancestry's Slovakia and More tour. I hope you've enjoyed a thumbnail of Slovakia, a little flavor of Austria, Czechia, and Poland, and modest glances at Hungary and Ukraine. To be inside of or within a handful of miles of all of Slovakia's bordering countries is indication of just how much ground we've covered. It's been a blast for me, and so I say, ďakujem, danke, ďakuju, ďakuje, ďakuju, köszönöm, thank you. Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment. Stay tuned for more content from Full Circle Ancestry. Take care.